understand the alt scene, quote unquote, the room scene, as opposed to the clubs, it's a little joke I have with myself. All the club guys have names like, let's say there's a guy that works the clubs whose name is Bob Momo. Okay. So if Bob Momo were in the alt scene, his Twitter handle would be Bob Momo, because he would have found out about Twitter when it was still kind of coming up. All those kind of older cats have names like Bob Momo Comedy. You understand? And their websites are bobmomocomedy.com, which is fine.
That is such a brilliant insight.
Isn't that funny? So it wasn't
Robert Kelly Live.
Robert Kelly Live. I'm not even teasing. It's just like that. Those were guys that wanted to do this stuff. There's a purity to that, and I love that. But then I started seeing guys like these had a lot to do with changing gears. These guys, what are they doing? What are they doing? They're playing theaters. They're crushing it. They're going out there. They're not just hacking. I don't mean hacking. They're trying to get away at the comic strip. They're doing something. They have things that they're having a falafel. They're out there touring because they had technological. I don't know. Right at the point where I was starting to get something funny is also it happened to be the time when YouTube was really blowing up. I started seeing trendsetters like these. You have to sketch videos. I was like, I always wanted to do sketch videos. But I feel like a lot of people that ask me to be in their sketch videos. And I was like, fuck that. So I started writing because Aziz said about that first. I was copying him. So then I started writing sketches. Then I started trying to find directors. Then I finally found Warren Ritter. Everything I ever asked him to do. And next thing you know, we're going to get out there and Warren get that everything like huge viral hit and stuff. And the next thing you know, if you're out for a writing job, which I was, you send the videos ahead of time. You want to see this information. This is it. That's it. They did the video, and he wrote that stuff. So you have this writing, you have a big writing program as opposed to just another stack of 35 pages. Keeping it together. So,
in a weird way, you were not allowed.
Well, I like that book, and I could see Malcolm Gladwell's understanding of time and place and when. That's why I said when I started getting decently funny, when all sort of these technologies started to become much more commonplace.
I was 4 years ahead of you, and that was not it. There was no fucking. Everyone was still shooting on film. There was no opportunity to just create something. No one was young making stuff. I started literally with Dimitri the day and we started together in the club together, fucking really good friends, went to a wedding, and Dimitri was they're very different lives.
Right, it's not
like on video. He extremely pivotal and inspirational in the fact that I was like, the way he worked.
Oh, yeah. He also had that thing where he was like, I do everything for an hour.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you're writing jokes, you have to do it for an hour. And if you go into the second hour, you have to finish the hour. You have to go another hour. You can't go an hour and 10 minutes. You have to go an hour. You have to go 2 hours. It has to be on the hour.
But I was different than, say, him and Aziz, who are that brain of like, I was like, no.
You're an X Factor guy. You're a charisma guy. So am I.
Yeah.
Faces and noises. I'm not putting us down. I love faces and noises. I would jingle keys for the audience if I thought I would do it for them. And I think
we're there for the comedy all day long.
Yeah,
I'm there for the comedy all day long. When I said something like, when I said to you at the beginning, like, your comedy brain is on, that means we're firing. I call it firing hot. We're like, I've stopped production for a period of time so I can do my hour.
Yeah.
And so I'm just doing stand up, and I'm firing fucking hot. If you put me on stage, I am in that area. Which when you're making television, when you're making your TV show, you were making your TV show. And you're busy by so many other.
I wasn't going up at night.
Well, you can't. You literally can't.
Yeah.
Because you're busy by like just simple like wardrobe decisions or hey, we want to get Bill on the show. Can you reach out to him? He's not responding. And then, like, all these fucking things are in your head. And I believe, like, right now I feel like you must be going into production mode.
We're about to, yeah, for sure. I'm trying to see if I can take my schedule before we're shooting, though. Because, like I said,
I would do that.
It would just take 3 weekends in a row of doing Friday, Saturday shows, and then I could tape them. Here's what I want to say, though. Going back to who we are, who we think we are, who we figure ourselves out to be, there's Dimitri's and there's Aziz's and there's that. You called them cerebral, I would agree with that. And then there's big dumb animals like you and I. I remember my first writing job, I told the showrunner I'm a big dumb animal. And that really helped sell me because I was like, I'm not a Harvard egghead. I'm not the sniper who sits quietly and delivers the perfect story twist after an hour and a half of silence. I'm the Gatling gun, and you can tell me to be quiet, or you can let me keep firing out jokes. But I am a big dumb animal.
You're the Gatling gun / muse, because I believe that people like us, when we hang out with those real
we inspire people.
We inspire them.
I completely agree. There's some good self-love. I like that. Let's get more of that.
Big self-lover.
But here you are picking, when you play a video game, I don't even have one in mind, but typically you have to pick, like, there's the different archetypes. So you can you figured out that you're the big dumb animal, or whatever we want to call ourselves, and then we can be that. And I'm a big believer in, I don't copy other people's methods. I have this healthy ego where I'm like, motherfucker, you should study my methods. Like, because I produce and I make stand-up where I'm just talking about stand-up, really. So there was a time, there's a book called Morning Rituals or something.
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah.
That came out, I want to say it came out in 1997.
It's a good book. I enjoy it.
Yep.
But at a certain point, we need to come to peace with, and I'm just talking about creativity, which is going to be different for everybody, and that's exactly my point here, is that for me, having a bottle of wine with lunch is sometimes my method. Because then I'll nap, and then I'll wake up, and I'll have a movie idea. Or whatever it is. Yeah. Or playing a video game, or watching a movie, or saying fuck off to writing that day, which is a lot of days, because I want to go on a fucking picnic with Val, or whatever it is. Whatever I'm doing is the thing. Because you and I, you've just become comedy. You're just trying to be comedy.
There's no offense for me.
There's no offense. Yeah. And I get that. The difference is, I don't know what the difference is. I don't go off and try and, if I go to camping or something, I'm not trying to think of what's funny about camping. Right. When I was doing the talk show, I would have been. In fact, we would go camping just to write a monologue about camping. We would have done stuff like that. But there's something about honoring your method and being like, look, Dimitri can do the hour thing. That's fine. He produces. Are you producing? You have to have your own sit-downs with yourself, with your own inner CEO, and be like, am I delivering as much as I'd like to be delivering, and balance that with your quality of life. And sometimes you need to cut back. Sometimes you need to increase. You know what you're capable of, but you also know what it feels like to just be a golem. So you find that balance. But, big dumb animals, I have to think that the more cerebral guys are peering over the fence looking at guys like us, too, and going, he's been drinking, he went up, he's just yelling at the front row, and they are howling at a pitch that nothing I could have written at home would make them howl at that pitch. And that's why it's fucking, man. There's a lot of different ways to fuck.
Gary Goldman said one time, because, presentations, we have an interesting way to present stuff as a big dumb animal. However, I will say we have we have golden hearts where I'm not up there like,
that's right.
This was wrong with gay people. And so what's frustrating sometimes, Gary Goldman was the one that said this to me. I had an incident with an alternative comic that didn't want to work with me. And he was upset. And the reason was, ultimately, is that I wasn't doing traditional stand-up in the sense that...
Well, I wouldn't want to follow you, but why he didn't want to work with you?
Oh, he didn't want to follow me. That's what it was. I think we actually got along fine. He didn't want to go on after me.
Well, that I understand. I wouldn't go on after you.
But it was, and my feelings were really hurt, because I like the guy. I really like the guy. Still, to this day, I respect.
Your feelings should not be hurt.
Oh, they're totally hurt.
They should absolutely not be hurt.
Oh, they're totally hurt.
Well, if I can help in any way, I'm here to help.
I appreciate it.
That is the least personal thing I've ever heard. As long as, if he was middling and was like, I don't want to go on the road with you anymore because I don't respect what you're doing, go ahead, have hurt feelings. That's nice.
Yeah.
But if someone's saying, I don't want to follow a guy who goes into the crowd, who talks about his day, who drinks, who's silly, who's slappy, motherfucker, I feel like I'm very good at stand-up. I would never bring you out with me. I would never bring a guy like you out with me. And if you were opening for me, I would tell you dispassionately and with no hate in my heart, do your act. Get them listening to jokes, because I can't follow that. The headliner is a privileged position. He gets the big piece of chicken, and everybody's supposed to kind of set the stage for him. So my openers are always joke tellers.
Really?
They don't riff a lot. They don't riff at all. Brent James Sullivan is opening for me, and every time he does a set, he does his set. And I sit in the crowd, and I'm like, attaboy, that's what I like. I want a joke teller. So I can have first crack at the goofy mural. I can have first crack at the weird table in the front with the guy that's falling asleep. I want that. That's my chicken. So you shouldn't take that personally at all.
I took it personally, but that was at a time when you went on the road, they paired you with the strongest guy they could find. I mean, and it is sometimes it's tough for me because I always assume we started at the same time, although I am older than you. I just assume because you knew Big J, and I was barking when Big J first showed up in New York. That's when him and Kurt I met. Those were my friends, but they weren't my friends because they were getting sets. They were my friends because they were hanging out at the club, and I liked them.
Yeah.
They weren't I didn't, and I saw them do stand up, and I thought they were talented, but it wasn't like they were my peers where we were hitting the clubs together. I was working the door. They'd come and hang out and try to get on, but I just liked them. I really liked them. When I did the road, and I don't know if you ever did the road in the traditional sense of hey, here's 25 offers from the Funny Bone. It's $1,300 a weekend, but you get an opportunity to get in with the franchise.
No, I never really did that.
Yeah, so that's how me, Steve Byrne, Ian Bagg, that generation. I'd say we were probably sophomores to your freshmen. I'm guessing we were just a year ahead of you, not that much older, but that's how our entry to the business was. Mm-hmm. It was a bunch of David Spade guys. Kind of graduated.
I just missed that, yeah. John Roy was the guy in Chicago that would go out and work the Funny Bones and stuff.
Okay.
And then me and Kumail and all these guys, my class.
Your class is TJ, Kumail,
TJ, Bronger.
Yeah.
I always forget some people. There's just so many wonderful ones. But for us, I'll just speak for myself, but I think it's true for a lot of these guys.
I do that all the time. I speak for everyone, and then I go, I shouldn't do that.
You can borrow that phrase. I'll just speak for myself. But you're still planting in their mind that it might be true for these other people.
It is. Keep going.
Is that I would open for people on an ask basis, meaning I would work a Funny Bone, but it's because Jim Gaffigan would be there, and last time he was in town, I opened for him, and he liked me. So then I'd go on the road very rarely.
Okay.
But it was just enough. That's a Brian Regan thing. He would go on the road to make sure he was just accessible and he'd hone his act in New York. He'd write his act in New York. He'd try it in fucking Florida or whatever.
I stopped doing sets in L.A. for a long time just because I had a family and it's very difficult to do both.
Yeah.
But then recently I started doing sets in L.A. and I realized just how valuable it is to do the Draft House or some just place where it is literally a mic, no beers, and just folding chairs. And you go, oh, fuck. So maybe I am getting by on that open neck, love on the road.
Open neck love.
But maybe I'm not. You're so good at that, by the way. You're so good at coining terms.
Oh, you just turned it into a joke. That was nice.
No, but I stole it from you. But it's great doing sets in the city and then going on the road and figuring out how to make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that's the real skill. If we just perform for our fans, and this is Tom Segura and I go back and forth on this all the time.
You're not Tom Segura?
I know.
I thought you were Tom Segura this whole time.
Fatter than me. He is obesely overweight. Obese.
Great. Did he gain weight?
He looks like it, right?
The only reason I say that was because I was trying to reverse engineer the comment that now that he's doing well, I feel like he's doing well.
He's doing better than anyone I know.
Is he really?
Oh.
Is he really doing really well? I just assume he's doing well.
I'll tell you what. I will not talk about him because I don't know if you're like me. I love this guy. Honestly, like a brother. It depresses me.
It'll upset you how good he's doing? Well, I'd be upset, too, if a guy who looked exactly like me was out there lapping me. If there was some jolly...
I'm so much stronger than he is. I look like just every part of my body. I look like the younger brother in the Foxcatcher who like...
Oh, yeah.
He's just he's doing fantastic. And I honestly, we both... one of those guys, I think he's probably your age in comedy, a freshman and my sophomore. Mm-hmm. But we both worked for Jay Moore for a while. Worked for Jay Moore. And we would trade off at times and host and feature together. And we're really kind of brothers in arms of the... Like, just, sitting in the green room for an hour. And we became really close. And then our wives became really close. And we've just always been close. And now it's probably closer than ever because he's going through this real fucking... He would never admit this, but a real change in his career of like I don't think clubs can fit him anymore. So, and it is... and I think he's just kind of trying to figure it out and base himself. So we're literally... we talk on the phone every day now, and you can tell it's him going like, hey man, like...
Is this normal?
Like, yeah, yeah. And he's so talented. He really is so talented, and he's the fucking sweetest guy, and he's smart with money. Like, there's not one flaw in him other than his obese body that fucking... It's fucking disgusting. His armpit hair connects with his tit hair.
Yikes.
Oh.
I just pictured it.
Yeah, but
it was a Pangea of hair.
But, I don't know how we got on this, but...
Does it really upset you that he's gaining weight to like a unhealthy place or something?
He makes fun of me on his podcast that I look like Gerard Depardieu, and I'm like, oh yeah, Gerard Depardieu let himself go pretty bad.
Who is that?
He's like all I know is like from the Alicia Silverstone movie, yes, My Cool Dad or whatever. Like he's just Google him. He was a very talented actor in the '80s, and he's just a mess. And I put this thing online about he just said I look fat, and so his fans are saying that I look fat, and I'm like, fucking, he's fatter than I am. It's one of those things.
Yeah. But I just want to be clear. You can be fat, but he's fatter than you.
Definitely fatter than I am. But yeah, it's. I don't know how we got on this conversation of fucking buns.
We were talking about. I don't remember.
What was it like? You and TJ were close, or still are. But what was it like to watch TJ, who's literally, I'm going to say blossomed. I wouldn't say blossomed, sprouted, and it's been happening for a long time.
Well, TJ's been almost exactly the same since I met him. Like, he's been a famous person since I met him, since before he had credits.
Really?
He's just always been, talk about noises and faces. He's just, I used to have him in my phone as X Factor. That was his name in my phone. And he's just always been very larger than life. He's come into this whole... kind of interesting and lovely absurdist and nihilist. He thinks life is like a joke and everything's just a game, and so he's literally larger than life. He's like standing outside of life and going like, look at what you think is important, like these awards or this job or whatever it is. There's a very mischievous kind of rascally energy and very fun. TJ's a sweet dear friend. His and I relationship is kind of like you're saying, those people, those touchstones that you call. I remember calling him at different points in my career, should I do this or should I do that? And he was always, for somebody that kind of seems and sometimes gets accused of being a little bit, I don't know if it's sociopathic or seem like he's all about himself. I've never met anyone more empathetic or will remember your plight. Like you did my podcast all those years ago or a couple years ago. He would remember. He would ask follow-ups about what you were worried about then. And TJ takes on other people's excitement and other people's pain way better than anybody I know. Better than me, for sure. Like, he's just good at that. But what is that like? What does that feel like? And he feels it as well. So he's kind of doing an interesting dance. On one hand, he sees everything as a joke, and on the other hand, he's just completely all in. I'll give you an example. When I told him the idea for my show, Crashing, the show we're doing at HBO, he was so encouraging and so excited about it and so certain that it was the right idea that he started pitching it to networks when he was in pitches for himself. So he'd pitch his show and then say, and just so you know, and he'd just pitch it in like a couple sentences, like, Pete Holmes is going out, you have to meet with this guy, the idea, and then blah, 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 he'd say the idea. And so he was just kind of I don't know if that had anything to do with it getting picked up or not. I'm guessing it didn't, but it was just this positivity and this shared enthusiasm. He's a better friend than I am to him. Like, he's good at staying on top of what you're doing, but it's interesting. He's a type of energy that, like, there's just certain friends that you want to see at certain times, certain feelings. And TJ is a friend that even though I only talk to him maybe once a month, I still feel very, very close to him because he is such a tornado, such a huge person. And even though I'm working on it, I have not given up on this. I startle easily sometimes. That doesn't seem like who I am, but there's parts of me that I'm just like, I don't want any trouble. You know what I mean? Like, really? I don't want to. We shouldn't go to that because it's loud, and what are we going to? People are drunk driving tonight. I don't know, blah blah. So like, I have that, and TJ is like, yeah, just like fearless and in it. Really, really, really fearless.
Yeah.
A very without fear person, and that can be too much for the scared part of me to handle. So I don't necessarily call him every weekend to see what he's up to.
Yeah.
But when I see him, we always pick right up where we left off, and I think we have a very loving and true and evolving relationship. Like, it's interesting to see the further into Eastern mysticism or whatever it is I'm interested in, how we end up meeting somewhere. He's in this like Nietzschean existential kind of meaningless vibe, and then I'll meet him with some sort of Buddhist appreciation, worshipping of the void. And like I said to him recently, I was like, TJ, you believe in God, your God is the void. That's fine. The no God is still what I would consider a God, because it's this object of your interest and your attention and your affection. So it's still what I kind of consider a non-traditional deity, is the great endless nothing, so it's interesting to see how Buddhism will meet TJ, or his deep Nietzschean anti-established religion thing will deeply resonate with me. So I'm like, this is weird. I've always been like, oh, it's like I'm Batman and you're the Joker, and we hang out and fucking smoke weed and get drunk, and I mean, he's just a great cage rattler and a very wonderful presence.
You guys never. I felt this outside perspective, but I never felt that you, Kumail, Kyle, TJ. I felt like you guys showed up to LA with very open hearts, and I would say I've had both Kyle and Kumail on the podcast, and I know TJ. Obviously, just through the business, but we had a run-in. Me and Ari had a run-in with TJ. I think you talked about it on your podcast one time about where TJ was tweeting about Dane, and then Ari and I went on the Ice House Chronicles and kind of was like, "Hey, you're not supposed to do that. That wasn't cool," or whatever we said, but without realizing, I think, the magnitude of who we were saying it to, not knowing that. Oh, we actually really like TJ a lot, and maybe we shouldn't do exactly what we're shitting on him about doing to him. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should realize he's a fucking guy sitting on the road, and I heard you guys on the podcast, and he was on the road, and he was just like, heard us shitting on him, and it hurt his heart. And I was like, and I remember calling Ari being like, that's not what I meant to do at all. And he was like, oh, just call TJ, he's a cool guy. And I was like, and I think I called him, and I was literally standing right outside this thing. When I talk on the phone with people, sometimes I'll pace. I'll just pace on the pavers, the outside pavers. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to TJ, and he was just like, it was a moment where I went, oh, this guy is just like me. There's no hatred. There's no fucking, he's not what those tweets were. He's just a really heartfelt guy who's like, yeah, man, he was like, I liked you. I'm so, like, it bummed me out when I heard you saying those negative things. And I was like, I didn't mean to say those. Like, I don't know. And he was like, why? Like, it was, and I really kind of walked away from that. And I was like, I'm glad I had that conversation with him, because if you put up those barriers where you're like, we start going, fuck that guy, as opposed to like, Ari is a very sweet man. And when Ari's like, no, you need to call him and tell him you feel that way because he's the greatest guy ever. And I was like, I know, but I don't want him to hate me. When you put up those barriers in this business, you're really just shutting yourself in. Yeah. You're not allowing yourself to find really cool people, like Kumail. Mm-hmm. Kumail and I are probably polar opposite kind of dudes, but we hung out in the man cave, And I was fucking fascinated by that guy.
Yeah.
Now in a weird way, every time it's the greatest thing about my podcast, for me, not for anyone else, is that I get to hang out with people I like. And I get to meet people I don't know all that well, so that when I see them the next time, we can just pick up and start chatting.
I give people that advice all the time. I'm like, find an excuse for sitting down with somebody that you love for an hour. And even if it wasn't recorded or something, if you were just like, I'm just doing this weird thing where once a month I ask someone I admire to have coffee with me for 1 hour, would that be something you're interested in? Like, just find...
It's what Chris Rock did before his special. He started going these Sunday morning evenings at Cornell Wallace. Is it Cornell Wallace? Is that the black dude with the afro, with the scarf on?
Oh, yeah.
He invited him. I can't say this is certain, but I'm just telling you what I think I know. He invited Chris Rock to these Sunday evening conversations that he'd have with friends. And he said, come hang out. And Chris Rock just hung out with the most brilliant people on the planet. And I think that's what Joe's doing with his podcast, is he's just hanging out with the fucking smartest guys on the planet. Yeah. And he's accruing all... When you watch Joe do stand-up right now, it is destructive in fucking 9 ways from Sunday. They do this thing, you would be amazing at it. It's, Jeremiah Watkins does a new, brand new stand-up show. So, like, no material, the crowd throws out things. It's like Setlist, but it's more interactive. And we did it the other night, and I watched Joe annihilate a room with brand new stuff. Just brand new stuff. Just all over the map, because he's hung out with fucking scientists. It's what you're doing with your podcast. When your show got canceled, did you say to yourself, because I feel like you might have, I don't know if I'm putting those words in your mouth. Did you say to yourself, I got here because of my podcast, because it seemed like the second your show was canceled, your podcast took off. Like, it seemed like you were doing a podcast, and it was great. It was very entertaining. But the second your show disappeared, I started, like, going, motherfucker, man, this podcast is next level. You were in the top 10 podcasts every week. Every week. And I don't follow that shit. I only know because you click on it to get your podcast. I was like, wow, Pete's back. Holy shit, Pete's back. And you had, like, and you really kind of opened your heart to new ideas or new philosophies of life. Am I putting those words in your mouth, or
you might be adding a story to it that isn't there? I don't know, because I don't remember a shift necessarily when the show got canceled. I do remember being very grateful and proud that we never missed an episode. That was not easy to do.
I miss months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's detrimental to a podcast.
We should study your method, not mine, because you produce. See? I'm helping you love yourself. But no, I was, and I'm entering that similar challenge where I'm like, I really have to try and bank episodes and stay ahead. But, you know, what I'm taking from what you said is, if there is anything to be learned from that, it's great in life to have as many things as you can that no one can take from you. For me, to be stand-up, this is the Jon Stewart effect. Daily Show goes away, he starts touring. You know, he can do whatever he wants. He can go to the cellar and crush and get that need met, and that the need of the audience to see him met, all that sort of stuff. So there's stand-up, and then there was the podcast. And I was kind of like, I still feel this way. I really think this HBO show is going to be something as important to me as the podcast. But so that, withstanding, the podcast is far and away the most important and vital work, or whatever you want to say, that I've done. And because it's the full thing. It's not just silly Pete. Sometimes it's grumpy Pete. Sometimes it's philosophical Pete. It's all the different Petes. And when you get into
it's great. I'm glad you said that, because it is all the Petes.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard you go in with an attitude.
Yeah.
And I literally was, and there have been podcasts where I didn't like you.
Yeah.
And then the next one I go,
yeah,
oh, that must have been yesterday.
Good. That's what it is. That's what putting yourself out there is supposed to be. That's what intimacy is. I'm sure your wife has days where she doesn't quote unquote like you or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm sure seeing all the different sides of somebody, you can be like, I like this better than this, but it's still the same person. And if there's anything that there's a lot of things I'd like to break down, but one of them is this certainty we have on who we are. And it's just like, I say this all the time on the podcast, our personalities and our understanding of our ego and our personality, I don't have another word for personality, is like building a sandcastle underwater. Every time a wave comes, it just kind of blows away. So when people are so certain. This is I kind of hate clan thinking. I know it looks like you like sports or whatever. One of the okay. What you were in a man cave?
I like sports as much as regular. I'm not a sports guy though.
I'm not shitting on sports guys, but for some reason, any sort of mass thinking freaks me out. That's sort of like, I'm a Rangers fan until I die. Yeah. And that's everyone in my family with the Red Sox, the Bruins, and the Patriots. Yeah. I just kind of get freaked out. Like, I'm a vegan, and I don't want to be the mouthpiece for veganism, even though I believe in it. I don't like I say I'm a fleegan, which is true. If you get me fucked up, I'll probably eat a quesadilla, you know what I mean? So who is a vegan? Do you understand? Which Pete was real? Was it drunk Pete? We could say in Vino Veritas, that's the more real Pete who doesn't give a shit and he's eating a quesadilla. Or is it this Pete who's only had green juice today and is buzzing pretty hard right now? And I love that. It's the same motherfucker. So who are we going... That's why I don't like politics. I don't like anything where it's like, draw the line. I'm on this side and I've been on that side the whole time. It's like, that's not what life looks like to me. It's a mess. It's a mess. And showbiz could be an amazing place to stretch our legs and to let everything out and show and explore and appreciate. Even when I say I agree with you that there are episodes where I don't like me. I don't like me. I don't agree with me. Yeah. I handled that wrong. I was grumpy. So who is judging that? Which one is Pete? Me sitting here going, I don't like that guy. Yeah. Let's let go of this feeling of dominion we have over our emotions, our senses, and our thoughts, and let go a little bit and be in the flow and be in the moment and admit that every interaction, every meal, every podcast, every exchange with a cashier is an opportunity for me to poke and prod and explore who I am, who they are, and what this is. But fucking every time you nail things down, it's fucking bullshit.
I hope to God people are listening to what you say and then rewinding it and listening again, because that was a prophetic statement. One of my best friends has passed away. His name is Croy, and we were watching a Janine Garofalo special, and she was railing about politics, and I was giggling. I love Janine. I think she's so brilliant, and he couldn't enjoy it. And I said, what do you not like about it? And he goes, how can you nail down your thoughts like that? Like, what if you change? And you got this thing where you go, I am this, I am that, and I was like, well, it's just a joke. And he goes, no, I'm seeing it differently. You got to always be flowing. And what you said is like, every interaction you have with a cashier. It's so interesting you say that, because I look at my interactions with people and I use them as practice to be a better person. As a practice to go like, treat everyone amazingly. Treat everyone like, hey man, like how are you doing today? Oh, crazy. Like, really be fun. Really be in the moment. And when you are shitty, I look back and I don't go like, well, that guy deserved it. I go, oh man, I was being shitty that day.
That's right.
Like,
and that's okay too.
Yeah, and that's okay too. I think
that happens. Liz Gilbert, the Eat, Pray, Love author, she did my podcast, and we recorded at 6 o'clock, and I always record in the morning. And it was just a big exploration of like, sorry, you got 6 o'clock, Pete. Like, we were talking about meditation and clearing your mind, and this guy, this Irish...
Meditate?
Yeah, I do, and this I say with reluctance. I do, but again, I don't want to be the mouthpiece for meditation. But this Irish guy was at the ashram, this temple in India with Liz, and he was very excited to take what he learned back to his father in Ireland.
Yeah.
So he goes back to his father, and the dad is smoking his pipe, looking at the fire, and the kid is like, Dad, I got to tell you about meditation. I really want to teach you what I've learned. And he goes, why, son? Right? She did the voice. And he goes, well, it calms your mind. And the dad goes, I've already got a calm mind. Okay. Noon Pete thinks that's a touching story. Okay? That's great. The dad was already living the practice. 6 o'clock, Pete, you can go back and listen to this. My response was, get the fuck out of my face. I said jokingly, but meaning it. I said, get the fuck out of my face. I know stubborn. I come from stubborn, ignorant, sorry, but some of my family was Irish people. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And if you want to tell me that some guy, because he sits quietly in a chair smoking a pipe, staring at a fire, is as calm as the discipline and the work you actually do to rein in your mind and get it to stop thinking, which is what meditation is really about.
Yeah.
6 o'clock Pete doesn't buy that shit for a nickel. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So Which one? If we had recorded that podcast at 11 a.m., I'm tearing up and I'm like, that's gorgeous. Some people don't need it, and I do believe that. But I also don't buy that anecdote as like, that guy is sitting there just like my father, just like my uncle, just like my grandfather, and they're drinking and they're looking at the fire and they're worrying about tomorrow, they're replaying today, they're thinking about dinner. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a big difference between somebody that does like intense practice, meditation practice, yoga practice, or whatever, and somebody who's capable of not looking at a TV, you know, after an hour. So, but which is it? I see both sides of it. And I think there's something lovely in saying, which Pete? And when we say, I need a girlfriend, which Pete needs a girlfriend? Lonely Pete, horny Pete? Yeah, they want a girlfriend. This is when I didn't have a girlfriend. Did you want a girlfriend? You didn't have a girlfriend? Well, I used to remember thinking that. I was like, I think I want a girlfriend. I was like, well, which Pete? You need to have a council of the Petes. Get them all in a room. Horny Pete, he's screaming we need a girlfriend because we need sex regularly. Lonely Pete is like, please, I want to watch a movie with a girl with that energy. I love a female energy. I want that nurturing and that kindness that tends to be in the women that I'm attracted to. And then there's the other Petes. There's part of my ego that I call Plainview because it's just pure ego. It's pure competition. It's from There Will Be Blood. It's just like I feed him as little as I can because I don't want him taking over.
Oh, I never see you as that guy. Like I used to, when my most, I would say competitive, I would say jealous. But my most jealous I ever was right when websites started coming out, and I would Google other people's websites and check their tour dates and be like, how are they doing that? And it would beat me up. My thing wasn't that I was jealous of, and I can say this because he's my friend, but Steve Byrne, because he was touring nonstop, or Tosh, who was touring nonstop. I was more just self-destructive of like, that's because you're not worth anything, Bert. That's because you.
Well, that's another Pete in there. That's another the self-hating. I feed him even less.
I feed the destructive part of myself a lot.
Well, the destructive part of yourself is just trying to protect yourself too. You know what I mean?
Getting ready to tell you all the shit that they're going to say about you, so you're not surprised.
He thinks he's helping.
I was talking to my therapist about it. He's like, my dad started the process. My dad started the process when I was young. And I played baseball, and the first year we won the championship. And in the winning game, I caught a hot fly ball, and I spiked it, and I did a dance. And my dad pulled me aside. He's like, you don't fucking do that. And then that next year we started baseball, and someone said to me, hey, congratulations on winning the championship last year. And I said, my response was, well, probably do it again this year. And my dad pulled me aside again. He was like, hey, cut that shit out. And from that moment in my life, and that moment is the moment we've pinpointed, I never looked at myself as an all-star. I looked at myself as someone who was lucky to be there. And because my dad was pragmatic, he never said to me, growing up, he was never like, I played with guys that went pro playing baseball, and he never was like, buddy, if you work hard enough, that could be you. It was like, no, they've got a natural gift. And so when I look at comics, and there are a lot of them on Sunset that really believe that they're gifted, I go, like my brain will say one of two things. You're delusional. Like, you have no idea what gifted is. Like, Bill Burr doesn't sit there and go, I'm the fucking best. He doesn't. No, at all. And I know that Bill doesn't do that, so my brain goes, Bert, if you want to be the best, you better fucking believe you're a piece of shit. So, like, I end up telling myself what a horrible comic I am so that I work harder. And I never walk away from a set going, I was just the best in the room. I always go, I could have done better. But I look at these guys who, like, fucking lit that room on fire. And you're like, what fight did you watch?
Follow that.
Yeah.
It's all a balance. Of course, I think you know that before I even say it. But I think there's something not nearly as toxic hiding for you in affirming yourself and allowing the plain view to come out. When I crush a room, it's okay to come off. Valerie sees this all the time. She's almost always the first person I see when I get off, and I kiss her, and especially if it's bad, I'll say something like, I was way better than them. You know what I mean? And that's just like pure swinging dick shit. Yeah. Or like, I'm trying to think of what I actually think. It's usually in the ballpark of like, I'm very good at this. Like it's not a mistake.
I'm I agree with you. I am very good at stand-up comedy.
And nobody's doing you any favors. This is what I actually work on in my therapy as well, because there's an appropriate... You know what's weird about your dad's stories is I understand what he's saying. And I could see myself saying to my son, maybe don't say, we're probably going to do it again this year. That's an okay feeling to have, and you can say that to me, and you can say that to your mom and your teammates or whatever. But when there's something that I learned, for better or worse, and maybe I need to get rid of this altogether, but I think there's value in being liked, being polite, being civil.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I hear your dad doing in that moment. So I could see myself saying, don't say that, don't spike the ball.
Don't spike the ball, don't do the dance, don't...
I hate the word class because it sounds like that is not classy, but I don't have another word. There's something about feeling the playing view. Okay, the first time I did The Cellar, right? One of the best nights of my life. I loved it so much. And I really think there's something so valuable in movies because Judd is insatiable and he's a stand-up at heart and he loves the pure raw cut of cocaine of doing stand-up. He loves the purity of that. And it's funny because his career kind of got interrupted by becoming a huge film writer, director, you know what I mean? But it, kind of in his bones, and I don't want to speak for him, but I've seen it demonstrated. He loves comedy. He loves the craft. So I knew we're in New York. We're going to be in New York for 3 months. Or 3 months, yeah. And he's going to go up at The Cellar. I just know he is. I've always been terrified of The Cellar.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I used to hand out flyers for the Boston on the corner of West 3rd and McDougal, right by it.
Do you remember the address?
Well, there was no address. It's just a corner building there.
Oh, no. The Boston? 86 West 3rd.
86 West 3rd.
Yeah, I remember answering the phone. I'm almost certain. Answering the phone. I've been saying it on stage lately.
One of the three.
It might be. It's probably on the flyer up there.
It doesn't matter. It's good stuff.
But in between Sullivan or in
Sullivan
between
and Thompson.
Yeah.
I know that. So I was handing out the flyers and all that, and I would look at The Cellar, and literally like a movie, I'd see Dove David offer something, go down the stairs, and I'd say out loud, someday, like I'd say something. So this is kind of an interesting thing, kind of in everything we're talking about, I hope, is the idea that I had been on TV every night with the talk show for 80 episodes. That's a lot of episodes. I had a lot. Hour special. I had all these little notches on my belt. Didn't matter. Still terrified of The Cellar. The guy's there. I don't want to follow Chris Rock. I don't want to this, that, the other. I don't want to get bumped by Seinfeld. There was just a lot of, looks like the sweaty comedy cave, and there's bloody bones on the ground, and the lore of Esty, and how's it booked, and if she likes you, and someone's got to recommend you, and are you passed to The Cellar? That's huge, and all that stuff. So I was still scared, and I knew Judd was going to want to go there, and I knew Judd would want me to come too, and I knew I would have to make a choice. Like I used to tell people, I was like, I'll go, but I'm not going to go up. That's what I would say, which is strange, right?
This is one of the most meaningful conversations I've ever had on my podcast because I know what you're saying and I feel what you're saying. Yeah. And these are real. Anyone who has never done stand-up, try to apply it in your life for whatever this is.
Yeah.
Because I felt this way too.
I was so scared.
Yeah.
Then Judd was going to be there, and
I feel what
it's like. I used to tell people, I was like, I'll go, but I'm not going to go up. That's what I would say, which is strange, right?
This is one of the most meaningful conversations I've ever had on my podcast because I know what you're saying and I feel what you're saying.
Yeah.
And these are real. Anyone who has never done stand-up, try to apply it in your life for whatever this is.
Yeah.
Because I felt this way too.
I was so scared.
Yeah.
Then Judd was going to be there, and he kept kind of not hounding me, but he would text me or something and be like, "Are you sure you don't want to? I can put a word in with Esty or whatever. You can go up, and it'd be fun. Let's just do it." Because Judd had that casualty, the appropriate kind of. I remember asking Aziz about The Cellar, and he went, "It's just jokes in front of people, man. It's just jokes in front of people." But I didn't believe him. I was like, "No, man, that's like a cathedral. I don't belong in there." There's some Bert feelings. There's some self-hating Pete feelings. I was like, "You don't belong in there. They're going to know you're a fraud. You can't deliver. It's going to be horrible. And it's this tiny little boxing gym rooms, tiny, and it's real rubber meet the road, Shedden. Attell just did 20 and crushed, and now you have to go up, right? Let's see how well your essence shines through. Let's see how funny it is when you speak from your heart on this stage. You're a fucking idiot. That's what I'm thinking. So then I literally watched the movie. Have you seen Man on Wire?
No, it gives me anxiety.
I'm
afraid of heights.
Yeah.
So anytime I see that, my hands start sweating.
I get it. Yeah. Maybe it's not for you.
But I'm also thinking of the documentary.
Yeah,
the documentary I watched, and it made my hands sweat.
Well, I didn't see the Joseph Gordon-Levitt one. That one seemed to be more like playing with the, we're going to show you a swooping overhead shot to make you afraid. You know? I love that documentary. And this is when I was like, no, movies and stories are important.
Yeah.
And this is so silly, but you understand how daunting The Cellar seemed to me. And then I watched Man on Wire for no reason. It was in my queue or something, and I asked Valerie if she had ever seen it. She hadn't seen it, so we watched it. And literally that's a story about a guy who wanted to walk on a tightrope between the two towers, obviously when they were still there. So it's an unbelievable story, and he does it. So after that movie, I'm literally so inspired by the idea of a guy facing his fear, risking his life for his art, and I was like, what the fuck is my problem? I can't go up in a tiny room and do stand-up? Of course I can. So I called Judd or texted him, and I was like, let's do it Wednesday. Went up.
Now, I'm going to stop you so people understand the gravitas of this moment.
Sure.
Me and you grew up doing stand-up around the corner from the Cellar at the place that was lesser than the Cellar. Of
course.
It was more the hood Cellar.
Right.
It was the more...
It wasn't even that.
It was less.
I hear what you're saying, but it was just like... It was so inconsequential that they didn't care if the guys that worked the Cellar did the Boston.
Yes.
And if it had been anything, they wouldn't have let them do it. But because it wasn't shit... They didn't care that Bill went up and performed for 15 people to warm up for a set in front of 150.
And to put that in perspective, we were the guys that worked the door.
That's right.
So the guys that were looking at us at that time, our egos were in question because of that. Yet we were the guys that worked the door, and this was the fucking marquee club.
That's right.
And you've made it. At this point, you've done 80 episodes of a TV show.
Right.
You have made it.
This was a weird moment. I was up at the bar in the Cellar, and I saw Conan was on, which means they had Conan on every night, which means I was on the TV every night in the Cellar by the back table. Yep. I'm like, that's insane. But then this is where we're going. Which Pete are we going to listen to? Which Pete do we think we are? This goes back to Bargatze going down the stairs. This is my going down the stairs into the Cellar story, because I think I don't belong. I think I'm less than. I think they're looking at me as a fraud. This is all just a story I'm telling myself based on nothing. And I actually had quite a bit to back up the claim that I wasn't those things, but I still didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Then I went up, and it was just amazing. It happened to be I think it was a Wednesday, and since I've done it many, many times since then, I know that it was like a especially good Wednesday. I went up, and God, that was paint on my face. Judd was like, oh, you went at them hard. Like, you did bits that I know you do when you're not fucking around. I wasn't doing the like, hey, let's just play and explore. I went out with a knife between my teeth in a Navy SEAL wetsuit and said, let's dance.
Pulling back fucking hairlines, showing the throat.
Yeah.
All right, next table.
That's exactly right.
Oh, that's fucking great.
And I got off stage, and this is what brought it up. The baseball story and all those, like, follow that, all of that plane view coming up. So I get off stage, and my plane view meter, my ego, my competitive, I will crush you, my competitive, I look at your tour dates and hate you, my competitive, this guy got that and I deserve that. He's a monster. I love him. He works for me. He's on the payroll. But he's a monster.
Yeah.
He's my monster, but he's a monster. But I am open about that. I have a monster in me. Everyone does, but I work with him, I negotiate with him, and I give him little things like, okay, we'll go up to the Cellar if you promise to take a back seat the other, 23 hours a day. So anyway, I get off stage, and I've never done coke, I've never done hard drugs, really. Why do I say really? I've done mushrooms and weed, that's all I've done.
Yeah.
So I've gotten off stage, and I am just glowing light. but no one knows because I'm not literally glowing white. But inside, it's the fucking 4th of July. Like, I feel like, talk about leaving the village. Talk about fighting the dragon. This was one of the dragons.
Yeah.
And this was a big one. This was one that lived in a cave that I built up to be even worse than I thought. Motherfucker, I've headlined technical colleges at noon. You know what I mean? I've done scarier, worse things. But I was so afraid of this place, a place that everybody thinks is the best room in New York, if not the country. And then I went up and I fucking cut that thing's head off. So I'm buzzing so hard. And then for the rest of the night, and Jed and I laughed about this because he knew how I felt, because he would feel that way sometimes after he performed at the Cellar. You're acting like a normal person. Someone would come up to you and be like, hey, how's it going? And you'd be like, oh, pretty good, man. But inside, it's just like, da 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 da. So you're just,
wait, that song again.
Da 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 da. So it's like being fucked up or high, and you're acting like you're not.
I will forever hear that song in those moments.
Yeah, that's it, man. But it's like getting high and then your parents come in or something, so you're acting like you're not high.
I feel that feeling sometimes here, and then that's perfect way.
Yeah.
How you doing? Pretty good.
That's what it feels like.
Oh, that's so great.
To kill.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. Do you mind if I pee real fast?
No, go ahead. We can wrap up if you want.
We don't have to. I just have to pee.
Yeah, go pee. Yeah. I will. All right, guys. Pete went to pee. I'm gonna go get a beer. I cracked a beer. I meant to tell you this at the beginning of the podcast. We went over to my friend's. It's her birthday party. Fucking do a cigar. I have to tell you and we'll wrap this up soon.
No, please.
So you can go. I literally could talk to you for hours.
I always, it's funny. I was trying to plan the rest of the day, and I was like, let's see, we're recording at 1, so we should be done around 2, I guess, 2:30. And then she goes, is that long enough? And I go, oh, it's not my podcast. She goes, Pete, any podcast you do is 2 hours.
Well, me and you are the same type of person.
Yeah, I know.
I love to talk and I love to listen.
Yeah.
I like talking more, probably.
Yeah.
But
you ever wonder if you saw your podcast like a graph of how much you talk versus the guest?
Yeah, I have. Katie does yours, right?
Yeah.
I upload mine, so I get to see. I look at it, and I get to see you can see there's 2 different, your field and my field. And I look and I make sure that your field's more than my field, because if it's not, my fans are fucking pissed.
Really?
They want to hear you talk.
I don't know about that.
I gotta tell you,
I listen to Rogan. I'm not shitting on Rogan, but I put his on, and I was like, I don't know if it's every episode, but he talks a lot.
Yeah.
It's not a criticism, but I think people listen to podcasts for the host, not necessarily the guest. His is huge.
Yeah.
He had Alex Gray on, and if you saw a chart, it would have been, at least for the first hour. I didn't listen to the second hour. I thought it was great, but it was a lot of Joe.
I'll tell you who talks a lot on this podcast is Bill Burr.
Very good.
I have to tell you my Cellar story.
Yeah.
Only because it is the same moment, and I feel like it's one of the reasons I think you are younger than me. I'm 43. How old are you?
36.
Yeah. I always felt like
How dare you?
I always felt like simpatico with you, but in the sense that my first time I did the Cellar, I was in to shoot a TV show. I'd been on TV for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I had moved to LA. I'd had 2 deals. I was successful, and if I came back to New York, I could still do Boston whenever I wanted, and I could do anything else. But the store was that, or the Cellar was that thing, and so I went to the Cellar to do a spot. I want to say Barry lined it up, and I was sitting with Mark Maron, and Mark Maron was the sweetest. He was also a vulnerable Maron at the time. I think he had gone through a divorce, and he was dating me or his wife at the time.
Yeah,
and I was doing his TV show. That was a show he had called Nevermind the Buzzcocks. Mm-hmm. So I was going to do my first set, and I went up, and the only reason that everything's inconsequential in this story, except the fact that I told it to a group of guys one time, and I told it exactly like this, and it was ruined by it because you remember things so much richer than they actually happen sometimes. I went down, had a great set. I get done. Manny comes up to me. He goes, Bert, you are now past. You are the best. You are amazing. As I say that, Corey goes, that's a great story, but Manny doesn't have an accent. I went, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, fuck. I so remember Manny being like you hold up back, like you there, and I was like, it was the moment where you go, I was sitting across from Marin. Manny comes up, sits down, he goes, you're funny. If you want to work, you can work. Call in your spots. I was living in LA. I was like, Manny, if you told me this fucking 4 months ago, I would have moved back to New York just to work this club.
Yeah.
But I live in LA now, and I can't. I go, but this moment is what matters to me. But in my recollection of it, Manny had an accent, and Pete Correale just goes, that's great, Bert, but Manny doesn't have an accent. And I was like, fuck.
I thought it was even better, like, he caught you, like, making the story up. Like, that's not true.
Oh, yeah, well.
Because he doesn't have an accent.
Luckily, it is true. It's like one of the things. There's clubs I've never passed at, and I'm not, like, a regular at. Yeah. And you always want that across the board acceptance. But I think I'm at the age now where I go, you know what? It's not about what other people think about me. It's about providing for my family and being fulfilled creatively. Yeah. And making sure that I come home at the end of every day and go, that was fun.
And you know what's weird though? As I, kind of had that great night at the Cellar, and I've had soccer sets at the Cellar since. I'm just pointing out that it's not like I'm always destructo. I happen to have a really nice day to be there. But there's some nights where everybody's just kind of not doing that great, and that's fine. I remember thinking, what a privilege to be 36 and to still have some dragons. It goes back to our original thesis of this entire podcast, which is the salad days and the war stories and the struggles and what I've been calling dragons. I still have dragons to go and slay, and that's a fun feeling. After I felt accepted and got that affirmation and started working the Cellar, I got that rush that really isn't imitatable. You can't really get it from any other thing. And that's why if you're in a position, if someone's listening in that position where they have nothing but dragons, it's almost like, great, you at the beginning of the game, you're going to start slaying some things. Start with some little ones. Start with your schedule. You slayed the dragon that you thought you couldn't just sit down and write every once in a while. That's a little dragon. You changed the habit. Great. Yeah. So, instead of looking around and being like, Christ, I'm surrounded, you can go it really is like Winston Churchill said in World War II, where, the enemies were on every side. He said, what an opportunity. It really is an opportunity to be like, great, let's fuck some shit up. Because we're running out of them, Bert.
I don't know. I see dragons everywhere.
No, don't get me wrong. I got some.
By the way, I am nothing but vulnerable and honest, and people can take that one of two ways, and you're more than welcome to take whatever I'm about to say, whatever way you want to take it. But the day, and like I said, I don't know how I heard about your sitcom, but I heard about it in New York, and I was like, oh, that's cool, good for Pete. Judd Apatow, that's an amazing. It's an amazing pairing, and all I thought was, I bet this is going to be really good, and all the guys I like in it. And I still have to ask you a question about that sitcom. But I was sitting at this desk, and I think I read that it got picked up, and I went, and I'm in a deal right now to do my own thing, and I thought, for the first time, it's like the opportunity where they're like, no, you do it, and we'll make it, but you do it.
Wow.
And I thought. And I read that and I thought, let Pete's experience be an inspiration. Let whatever and the opportunities that are now abounding for him, let that inspire you to want those same opportunities. And I literally sat at that desk and I was like, don't let this fall by the wayside. And I've let that happen a number of times. I've been deals for the past 5 years, or 4 years in a row.
There's no way,
Captain Pilot and fucking falls apart. Network deal, well, we're going to pass on the script. Network deal, and every time I've always done the same thing where I just was like, I was this guy that just sat back and let everyone make decisions for me, and I got put into an opportunity where someone was like, no, I want you, I don't want any pitch, I want you to write it, and I want you to do it, and that's how it'll be good. Just like yours. This is Pete. This is all me. This is unfiltered. This is what you get is because I said, no. This is how good shit happens. And I literally sat there and I looked at it and I thought, I was sitting at that desk and I went, fucking thank God for two things. Thank God I don't hate Pete. Because if I hated you, I just would have been like, fuck that guy. But like I was like, thank God I don't hate Pete. And thank God this happened at this moment as I sat there on the desk to write. And I was like, this is. I just thought of what a great day this would be having. My wife calls them. I forget my wife's analogy for them. But their day, you earned it. She goes, like a day where Amy Schumer, when her movie Trainwreck came out, it was #1. My wife is. Amy used to be a very good friend of ours, but we let her stay at our house when we were out of town. So my wife knows Amy very well. My sisters know Amy very well. We've known her for a very long time. And my wife called and she goes, have you heard about Amy? I said, no. I'm going to get emotional talking about this. But she goes, have you heard about Amy? And I said, no. She goes, oh my God, Bert. And like spewed. And I might actually cry. I remember where I was driving and she said, her movie's #1. And I got so excited for her. My wife was like, she earned it. She really earned it. She earned that. She earned this day. Yeah. And it's such a cool feeling to earn that feeling of you to earn it and just say to yourself, no, that guy deserves to feel like this. That feeling. And when I remember sitting there going, God damn it, Pete earned today. I don't know if this is a joke of yours or if this is someone else's that I messed into your act, but you had said like, sitting on your porch getting to have a cocktail that you loved your porch. You had a new house or something, and I don't know if it was a mint julep or but you got to have a cocktail on your porch. I don't know where you say this. And I thought to myself when I read about that, I went, oh, Pete earned whatever drink he's having today. Like to sit and slow down and his house. Like I go, God damn, Pete earned that. And I thought to myself, I want to earn it. Like I want to earn that day. And dude. It's the coolest thing about this business. It's the coolest thing about this business, we don't look at cynically with full hatred and jealousy, is to watch people succeed and go, oh, I'm so proud of them.
Well, that's I love that. That's very sweet. And that's a great way to be in this world, not just this business, but in this world. And anybody that knows my podcast knows that which is that the other way is comedy cancer. And the people that I know that read, it kind of, it broke my heart. I haven't talked about this. I want to shine a light on it. But it broke my heart. Just the other day I was on a friend's Facebook page and I saw some names that I hadn't thought of in a while. Some guys that kind of were in the scene when I was doing stuff in Chicago. And I clicked around and really just kind of looking at photos and the thing that made me intimate was I knew their acts. Here it is 10 years later and I can still tell you your act. And I feel like there's an assumed love and respect, and you don't share that with everybody. And then I went to this guy in particular's Facebook page, and there was a thread shitting on me and shitting on my show, shitting on me getting this show. And I was like, you talk about me meditating, I literally try and think about this person while I'm meditating. And this sounds let's just let it sound what it sounds like. I try and love them and send them love, because I know the temptation of the dark side. I really do. And there's a power in the dark side. I'm not to say the dark side like they're just being evil. I don't think they're being evil. I'm just saying they're giving in to that sort of, let's band together and shit on something because we don't like it and we think this person stinks and they've changed or whatever it was. I don't really understand what it was exactly that they hated, but I know the feeling and the call towards Pete gets a show picked up, or Amy gets a movie #1, or Aziz gets on Parks and Rec and sells out Madison Square Garden, or Dane, or take your pick. Lots and lots of choices to sit around and smoke the stems and the seeds of vitriol, of trying to get high off of shitting on other people. And it'll get you there sometimes. I know the pleasure of going into that. I've done that. I started doing it on Facebook or somebody I know might have their heart hurt by seeing it. But I understand. But the reason I call it mommy cancer is because, take that example out of it, because honestly I don't want to even give that too much weight. I've seen the people that shit on Aziz. I saw the people that shit on Dane. I saw the people that shit on Aiden. And for the most part, they're either no longer doing comedy or they're on their way out. And it's not for lack of talent. It's because literally their vision is overtaken with cancer, with a bad